If you're wondering which mirrorless camera for beginners are worth your money, stick around. After we run through each product, I'll give you my personal take. Would I buy it or would I skip it? No fluff, just my honest opinion. Let's get into it. Canon EOS R50. This tiny plastic brick has autofocus so sticky it will track your cat's soul through a wall, but trying to find affordable lenses for it feels like searching for a polite person on the internet. It takes gorgeous 4K video that looks like $1,000,000 until you try to move, at which point the lack of stabilization makes it look like you're filming during a magnitude 9 earthquake. Would I buy it? Maybe, because it is cheap and light as a feather, but I hope you enjoy living with only 2 kit lenses for the rest of your natural life. Nikon Z50 II. Nikon finally slapped their top-tier XP7 processor into this beginner body, giving it the brain of a professional athlete trapped in the body of a toddler who still uses a pop-up flash. The dynamic range is absolutely legendary for an APS-C sensor, though the battery life is so pathetic you will probably spend more time charging it than actually taking photos of things you'll never look at again. Would I buy it? Yes, because having 30 frames per second burst shooting is total overkill for my lunch photos, and I am absolutely here for it. Sony ZV-E10 II. This camera has more phase detection focus points than I have brain cells, making it a vlogging beast that will never let your face go blurry, even if you are actively running away from your responsibilities. However, Sony decided a viewfinder was too mainstream, so good luck seeing anything on that screen when the sun is actually doing its job and shining on you. Would I buy it? No, because I refuse to pay this much for a camera that forces me to squint at a tiny LCD screen like a confused grandparent. Fujifilm X-T30 II. This thing looks so retro and hip that it will automatically increase the property value of any coffee shop you walk into, even if the autofocus still occasionally gets confused by a particularly interesting rock. It shoots 26 megapixel files that look like actual film, but the body is so small that if you have anything larger than doll-sized hands, you will probably develop a permanent hand cramp within 20 minutes. Would I buy it? Yes, because looking cool is 90% of the battle and I can just pretend the missed focus was an artistic choice. Canon EOS R10. It is basically the R50's older, more athletic brother that actually has enough buttons to satisfy a human pilot. Yet it still suffers from the same lens drought that makes the Sahara Desert look like a water park. You get a mechanical shutter that clicks at 15 frames per second, which is great for sports. But the buffer fills up so fast you will be standing there like an idiot while the camera thinks about what it just saw. Would I buy it? Maybe, but only if I can find a deal that includes a lens adapter so I can use glass that actually exists. Nikon Z5 II. This full-frame beast packs a 24.5 megapixel sensor and can blast out 30 frames per second in JPEG mode, which is basically overkill for your beginner dog photos. It lacks high-end video specs and the body is a bit chunky, but compared to the smaller sensors on this list, it's like bringing a tank to a knife fight. Would I buy it? Yes, because it's the most affordable way to get that juicy full-frame look without selling a kidney. Fujifilm X-M5. This camera is smaller than my wallet after a Steam sale and features a dedicated film simulation dial that lets you pretend you're a professional film photographer without actually knowing what you're doing. It completely ditches the viewfinder and the grip is basically non-existent, making it feel like you're trying to take photos with a sophisticated bar of soap. Would I buy it? Maybe, if I were a dedicated vlogger who cares more about looking aesthetic on Instagram than actually seeing what I'm shooting in direct sunlight. Sony A6100. The autofocus on this thing is so fast it'll track your bad decisions before you even make them, and unlike the Fujifilm, it actually has a viewfinder so you won't be squinting at a screen like a confused grandparent. The menu system is a literal labyrinth designed by someone who hates joy, and the screen only tilts instead of flipping out, which is a total middle finger to the selfie generation. Would I buy it? No. Because while the tech is solid, using the menus feels like trying to program a microwave from 1998. Olympus OMD EM10. Mark IV. This Micro Four Thirds gem has 5-axis in-body image stabilization that's so steady you could probably take sharp photos during an earthquake, and it looks way more expensive than it actually is. The sensor is significantly smaller than the Nikon or Canon, meaning your low-light photos might look like a bowl of digital oatmeal if you aren't careful. Would I buy it? Yes, because it's tiny enough to fit in a jacket pocket and the built-in stabilization is a godsend for shaky beginner hands. Canon EOS R8. This thing is essentially the brains of a pro camera stuffed into a plastic body that feels lighter than my expectations for the year 2027, offering incredible 24 megapixel full-frame quality. The battery life is absolutely pathetic and it lacks any internal stabilization, so unless you have surgeon-level steady hands, your handheld video is going to look like a found-footage horror movie. Would I buy it? No, because I'd spend more time swapping batteries than actually taking pictures, which is a massive vibe killer. Nikon Z. This vintage-looking beauty is basically a thirst trap for hipsters, but once you hold it, the hollow plastic body feels cheaper than a knockoff toy. It lacks a proper grip, which makes it handle like a wet bar of soap, but hey, at least those physical dials make you look like you know what you are doing in manual mode. Would I buy it? Maybe. Only if your main photography goal is matching your camera to your leather jacket while ignoring the lack of native crop sensor lenses. Fujifilm X-S20. This beast is like the overachieving sibling that actually has a grip and can record 6K video, but it will still charge you extra for a literal external fan if you don't want it to melt during a long shoot. It brings those legendary film simulations so you can pretend you're a pro without ever touching a RAW file, though the lack of weather sealing means one raindrop and it's game over. Would I buy it? Yes, because having actual internal stabilization and a battery that doesn't die in 20 minutes is worth the extra cash. Sony A6400. This thing has autofocus so fast it can track a caffeinated squirrel, but the menu system is so cluttered and confusing you'll need a PhD in engineering just to find the format button. It is ancient at this point and still uses that crappy micro USB port from the Stone Age, yet it still manages to make newer cameras look like they are moving in slow motion. Would I buy it? Yes, because the lens selection is massive and it is the only beginner camera that won't give up on you when things start moving. Panasonic Lumix G100D. Panasonic really tried to market this to vloggers, but the electronic stabilization crops your face so much that you'll look like a giant thumb on screen. The sensor is smaller than a postage stamp compared to the others, so unless you're shooting in the middle of a desert at noon, expect more noise than a heavy metal concert. Would I buy it? No, because the contrast-based autofocus is still hunting for a soul while the Sony and Canon have already finished the job. Canon EOS R100. This is the budget king for people who want to join the mirrorless club but can't afford a used bicycle, though Canon stripped it so much it doesn't even have a touchscreen in 2026. The 4K video is such a cropped, wobbly mess that you are better off using your phone, but it is undeniably small enough to hide in your pocket when you realize how limited it is. Would I buy it? No. Because being stuck with a fixed screen and no phase detection in 4K is a level of struggle nobody deserves. Nikon Z30. This tiny beast is basically a smartphone on steroids that finally realized it needs a proper grip and a flippy screen so you can actually see how much you're failing at vlogging. It lacks an electronic viewfinder and in-body image stabilization, so your footage might look like a found footage horror movie if you have shaky hands, but at least the uncropped 4K video makes your mistakes look crisp. Would I buy it? Maybe. Because while it's the cheapest way to look like a professional YouTuber, the lack of a headphone jack means you'll be praying your audio isn't absolute garbage until you get home. Olympus System OM5. This camera is rugged enough to survive a midlife crisis hike in a monsoon thanks to its IP53 weather sealing, and it even has a live ND filter so you can pretend you're a long exposure wizard without carrying extra glass. However, it's still rocking a prehistoric micro USB port in 2026, and the menus are a labyrinth that will make you want to throw the whole lightweight polycarbonate body into the nearest lake. Would I buy it? Yes. Specifically if you're a beginner who values portability and computational features like 50-megapixel handheld high-res mode more than modern charging cables. Sony A7C II. This full-frame powerhouse has autofocus so sticky it'll track your subject like a clingy X, and it manages to cram a massive 33-megapixel sensor into a body that won't give you a hernia. The viewfinder is so small and uncomfortable it feels like peeping through a keyhole, and the burst rate drops to a pathetic 6 frames per second if you dare to shoot uncompressed RAW files. Would I buy it? Yes, because the AI-powered autofocus and 10-bit internal recording make it almost impossible for a beginner to mess up a shot, even if you have to sacrifice your eye comfort. Panasonic Lumix S5 II. Panasonic finally discovered phase detect autofocus so you won't constantly pulse in and out of focus like a strobe light, and the built-in cooling fan means this thing will keep recording long after you've passed out from exhaustion. It's a bit of a chonk compared to the Sony A7C II, and it loves to underexpose your shots like it's trying to be edgy and mysterious. Would I buy it? Yes, it is the ultimate value king for beginners who want professional video features like dual native ISO and incredible stabilization without paying the Sony tax. Fujifilm X-T30. This retro-styled beauty has a dedicated film simulation dial so you can look like a hipster artist with one click, and the 40-megapixel sensor is basically overkill for your Instagram cat photos. Sadly, the battery life is legendary for being terrible, and the rolling shutter is so bad that any fast movement will make buildings look like they're melting into jello. Would I buy it? No, because while it's pretty to look at, the lack of a fully articulating screen and the overheating quirks make it a frustrating choice for a beginner mainly focused on vlogging. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you pick the mirrorless camera for beginners for you. If you have any questions, drop a comment below. Links to all of these products mentioned in this video will be in the description.